Kelly Nichols. Welcome to this week's episode of Wellness Simplified. You know that feeling? It's 11 p.m., you've been running since 6 a.m., you should be completely wrecked, but you lay down and your brain just won't stop. You're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, but you're also wired. Today, my guest, Camilla Thompson, is going to explain exactly what's happening in your body and give you practical, easy steps, including one simple habit that you can do tomorrow morning that will start to fix this. Camilla Thompson is one of Australia's leading female biohackers and nationally recognized nutritionist, executive coach, and behaviour change expert. She is the author of Biohack Me, Australia's first biohacking book, and the founder of the award-winning Live Longer retreat in Bali. Her work has been featured on Sunrise, Daily Mail, Sydney Morning Herald, Women's Fitness, and The Age, and she regularly delivers keynotes and workshops at wellness retreats and corporate events across Australia and New Zealand. Camilla is on a mission to make biohacking accessible, empowering people to optimize their health and live longer better. I think you're going to love today's expert and this interview, so let's get into it. Hey, Camilla, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to it. I remember the first time that you and I ever chatted, and I felt like, you get off the phone with someone and you're like, I could talk to that person forever. That was my experience. So I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you. It's so good. I felt the same, and I think over the years we've had so many conversations, but it's really good to bring it together into this forum and do a podcast. So yeah, exciting.
Thank you. I'd like to start by kind of taking a look inside your life. So I'd love to hear how people start their days, for example. So how do you start your day to set yourself up for success? What are some of your habits?
Okay, well, today, so I do a lot of alternate things. So I alternate days, but every morning since Jan 1st, I've done a 10-minute meditation. And I just jump onto Insight Timer. I've bookmarked a few people I like, and I just do 10 minutes. And it really has changed so much. I just feel so much more at peace and calm and hopeful once I've done. And I'm doing a lot of ones with affirmations and positive energy and all the good vibes. But I used to do it, and it's one of those things that you feel good, and then it drops off, and then you're like, why did I stop doing that? Because that felt really good. So that's back on. So that's one of my everyday non-negotiables.
Awesome.
Funnily enough, I bookend my day. The other one's reading a book, which I've dropped off as well because I've been traveling and jet lagged, and I wasn't able to read, and I really missed that. And just, 10 minutes, minimum 10 minutes at night I read for. So those are my bookend the day.
Yeah.
This
Do
morning
you read fiction or non-fiction?
Always fiction, because I like to just go into a different world. And I don't, a lot of the time I'm reading health books, leadership books, or listening to podcasts. It's all information. So I like to escape into other people's worlds. So yeah, that's definitely my go-to. This morning I had an infrared sauna, and then I did a cold shower after that, and then I did a bit of red light therapy. So today, I don't do this every day. Every other day I alternate. Yeah. So that's it. Then I just got a bit of sunlight, a bit of natural light in the morning, and had my tea on my balcony. And then I have gone to the gym and done some weights. But I start work really early. So I started work early, then I'll have a sauna, then I'll do a bit more work, then I'll go to the gym. So I'm very lucky I've got that flexibility to kind of sprinkle my habits during the day.
Yeah. And it probably helps. I mean, I don't know about you, but I find this when I just sit down and I just try to power through the day and work, I'm actually less productive, and I get to the end of the day and I'm exhausted and my back hurts. Whereas if I do that kind of thing of bit of intense work, get up, do something, a sauna or whatever it is, jump on the trampoline in my case because I'm crazy, then I find that I get to the end of the day more energized. Do you find that?
100%. And I've got a trampoline too, and that will be part of my afternoon routine. So I will go and have a bounce, put some music on, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and that will just give me some more energy to do the rest of the afternoon. But yeah, I really love doing that. When I wake up, once I've done my meditation and I've had a cup of tea, I'm ready to work for an hour. Yeah. And then I'll kind of, then I'll sort of take breaks and do stuff. But it just depends, on our chronotype as well, where we're kind of at from the moment we wake up. Some people, if they're a bit more of a wolf or, the night owl, they're going to not really be feeling that productive as soon as they wake up. Whereas I'm not. So yeah, it really depends.
Talk to me a little bit about the chronotype for people who don't know.
Yeah, so look, we all have a sort of chronological clock, which sort of, I guess this sort of feeds into the whole stress piece as well that we're going to talk about. But we all have this sort of 24-hour biological clock that's going on inside us, and we hear of it as a circadian clock. We know about our circadian rhythm, and all of us have different chronotypes, and those chronotypes sort of dictate a lot of things, like how we work, our personality, when best to go to sleep. And it's so individualized, and I think that's where we go so wrong with health, is we really, everything becomes so generic, and well, this works for me, it will work for you, and we don't look at that bio individuality. And I think that's where things like chronotypes are fascinating. You can do an online test for free with, I think it's Dr. Bruce, that came up with the sort of the 4 chronotypes. Yep. Most of us have heard of the night owl and the lark, but there's a kind of a bit more of an in-depth. We've got the bear, the lion, the wolf, and the dolphin are his 4 chronotypes. And yeah, and look, we all fluctuate in and out of those chronotypes. Like when we're teenagers, we all become wolves or night owls. We're
definitely
up late. Babies tend to be more like lions. They go to bed early, they wake up early. As we get older, like we change. Like for women, I've become a dolphin since I've gone through perimenopause.
So
suddenly.
What's a dolphin? Which one's a dolphin?
Dolphin's much more sensitive, light sleeper, very sensitive to everything. And I wasn't that before. I was more of a lion. And so it's interesting. And I've retested and I'm like, oh, that's changed. So we do have dominant ones.
Yeah, it's so true about the change. Like I used to, and we'll be talking about this in stress, like I used to be able to work late into the night and then go to sleep and sleep fine. And like I don't do that anymore because it totally unravels me. And last night I was working a bit late and I tried to go straight to sleep, which is like a big no-no for me. And sure enough, didn't sleep well. The Oura Ring stats are terrible. And you just got to respect where you're at. So, but I'll put the link in the show notes so people can do that chronotype test. That's something like really simple.
It's really simple and it's really worth doing. And it's great for people you work with or relationships or family. So you understand, that's your chronotype. I mean, when we look at teenagers, they are going through that whole wolf night owl period and we expect them to get up and go to school and their brains to be switched on at 9 a.m. and they're just not, and I think, there's some workplaces do amazing things where everyone knows each other's chronotype and they'll go, okay, book a meeting with Matt at this time and you look, see Jane here, Steve, because depending on when they work best or deep work or, depending on what those pockets are. So yeah, it's really worth looking into.
So cool. Setting up a workplace around people's, bio-individuality. Amazing. And you talked a little bit about like your nighttime routine and is there anything else you add into that nighttime routine?
So I think for nighttime, for me, it's really about sort of dimming the lights. So when we talk about our our circadian clock, is that our circadian clock starts from the moment we wake up. So natural light in the morning sets that clock to say, okay, we're going to start producing cortisol. We're going to, and then when at night, when it gets a bit darker, that's the signal to start producing more melatonin. So a lot of us are still having very bright lights in the evening. So we really want to dim the lights down so it's more sunset vibes or, wear your glasses. Some people are into them. Dimming the lights. I have herbal tea, just, not watching anything on TV that's too violent or full on overstimulating. For me, I've become so much more sensitive as I get older. Same. With this type of thing. And then I think that's probably it for me. I take magnesium at night, glycinate just to help with sleep and nervous system. Yeah. And I go to bed at the same time every night. The body loves consistency with sleep. So I think that's when we see, I've just gone through jet lag from London, which was awful. And I tried all the things. And my body just went, no, I don't like this. You're used to I'm such a consistent person. It just messed up my schedule.
I feel like we forget that when we become adults. Like if you're a parent, you would see in your children that children thrive with routines, but then we ourselves think, no, but we don't need them. But the body, as you said, loves that consistency.
It does. And I think some of the latest sleep research is looking into that. Dr. Matthew Walker is always an interesting guy to follow when it comes to sleep. He's kind of at the forefront pioneering a lot of the research, but the consistency, it just keeps coming back to that, and I think you've got like a half an hour window at weekends of like go to bed a bit later or wake up a bit later before it disrupts that rhythm. But
it's not a lot, right? You've really got to think about that, because then, if you're trying to wake
yeah,
up at 5 a.m. during the week and then you want to sleep in on the weekend, that kind of stuffs it up.
yeah, and most people find that body automatically wakes up. It's really hard to go back to sleep once you're in that rhythm. The body is just so much, it's guided so much by hormones and our rhythm. Like it's just, there's so many things going on. From the moment we wake up to, even through the night, there's all this work going on internally. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And you are obviously one of the leading voices in biohacking in Australia. And I'm curious to know, of all these things that you've tried, is anything recent that you've been like really surprised by, whether it's a device or a habit, something that you're surprised by how much positive impact it's made?
Look, I think I get asked this quite a lot, and for me, it always comes back to foundational, simple practices. But a cold shower and a bit of humming or gargling in the shower just to activate that vagus nerve. I know a lot of people sing in the shower. There's a reason for that. It does actually activate your parasympathetic nervous system. But I love a cold shower. For me, really sets me up for the day. It's a resilience piece. It increases dopamine. You kind of feel like I can do anything once I've done that. Yeah. It's harder in winter, but I'm determined to keep pushing through. I do it in winter.
Yeah. I like to do hot, cold.
Same. I'll do hot first. Minimum 30 seconds cold. Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
It's much more manageable. So I think something as simple as a cold shower, and just taking 10 minutes in the morning to breathe and create some space and a meditation. For me, that's just an absolute non-negotiable now.
Yeah. I love your approach, because I think so many people in biohacking, I mean, I obviously love the space, but I also find that it becomes so bro intense. And I love that you just bring it back to the simple, what can you fit into your day? Like, yeah, it's very refreshing.
Yeah, look, I wrote my book to make biohacking accessible and affordable for everyone, because I felt polarized out of it. And I was like, I don't have all these thousands of dollars to spend on doing regular hyperbaric chambers and cryotherapy and all these things, which are amazing. And I've tried them and they are incredible, but I don't have that sort of never ending budget to spend. And so it's like, well, how can I replicate some of this through nature, which ultimately is our biggest and best biohack, and red light therapy is mimicking nature and things like that. So, and I do love red light therapy and saunas, but I can't do all the things. And I want everyone to go, actually, well, I can use a sauna at my gym, or I can go here and do this. It's not too unattainable for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find it funny, there's that whole longevity Olympics that Brian Johnson started, and one of the people who's at the very top of it is a woman who's, I think she's in her 50s, and her whole approach is just, eat more vegetables, consistently exercise. Like she's very simple, and I think she was like at some stage actually outperforming him, who's spending millions and millions of dollars. I love it.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. I find him fascinating, and Kayla Barnes. They're both kind of absolute experiments on what's possible in the longevity space. But I just love to hear that someone's going, well, hang on, I'm just doing some basic pieces. And I was just in London. It was my great aunt's 100th birthday. And, people keep saying, what's her secret? What's her secret? What does she eat? What exercise? And I'm like, her secret is a sense of meaning and purpose and community. And, her brain's incredible. She's got great genetics. She's still sharp as, but she's got such a sense of purpose in where she's living in her care home, and she's the ambassador there, and she loves all the people and the staff, and that's what keeps her going.
100%.
And the same thing, my dad's 80. He's not massively into healthy diet and definitely not exercise, but he still works full time. He's deep sea dives every year. Like he travels. He's got a young mindset. And the same with my great aunt. They're both in the same genetics, but there's something in that, there's something in that piece as well. The mindset piece is so important.
Yeah, I agree. I saw my dad decline rapidly when that kind of changed. So yeah, absolutely.
That's hard.
Well, let's jump into today's. We're going to look at stress and that whole like feeling that I think you and I have both experienced a lot of, where you're just wired, can't shut off your brain, all of that, overwhelmed. Maybe we can start by just sharing like personally, like what's been your experience of that?
Look, I think stress is probably the thing I struggle with the most, is managing my stress levels. And, you know, I know what to do. I've got all the tools. I understand the mechanics behind it and what's going on, but it doesn't make it any easier. It is really easy to get addicted to stress and get caught in that, you know, that loop of like, I'm rushing, everything's stressful, there's an emergency going on 24 hours a day. And
Totally.
It's really easy to get into that loop. And I think, you know, I think for me, now that I'm not parenting as much, now my kids are older, that has made a huge difference, because juggling work, kids, you know, that increases your stress levels a lot. So I do feel like I'm less stressed from that perspective, worrying about my kids and having to parent as much now they've left home, which brings a different level of sort of not stress, but emotion. But yeah, look, I've been burnout. I've been in hospital with sepsis because I was so work, go. You know, I didn't realize that I was unwell. And I think a lot of people are operating like that. A lot of people are just, they're so disconnected with their bodies. And I didn't realize. And stress builds up and up and up. And chronic stress is really not good. And most of us are living in a state of chronic stress.
Yeah. And I think the point you just made is so important. I remember sitting on the couch with my best friend, and I was at the point of going through a divorce, and I was speaking about it like, you know, from the head up, like in this very kind of detached way. And my friend was like, Kel, like you're not feeling your body at all. And it was like a survival mechanism. And I think people, and I had lived, I don't know, 20 odd years like that, at least 40, maybe, no, not 40, because that would be, but yeah, 20, 30 years like that. And it's a training, you know, the way to survive in the world is to detach from your feelings and just like strategize yourself out of everything. And I thought I could strategize myself out of everything. And so I think that people don't even really know how stressed they are. I mean, maybe that's useful to go into. Like, what do you think for somebody who might be like that, who's pushing it down? What are some of the signals they can actually look out for if they're not really paying attention?
Yeah, look, I just had this conversation with a girlfriend of mine last week who is got 3 children. She's on 2 or 3 boards. She's got a massive job. And she's just been diagnosed with underactive thyroid. And she keeps saying, I'm fine. I can manage all of this. And she is like a superhuman woman. But her body's telling her different. You know, her brain is telling her, I've got this, I can do this, I'm a powerhouse. Yeah. But at the same time, her body's going, And she's like, I felt exhausted. And she's normally really high energy. So her, you know, and your adrenals, she's run her adrenals into the ground. And so I think there's a lot of women operating like this. There's a lot of men doing the same. And I think, you know, that sort of waking up and you think you've had a good sleep, but you feel exhausted still. So you've got that low energy, you're relying on caffeine through the day. You've got that slump in the afternoon where you're like, oh, I'm dragging myself through mud. You know, when you start feeling negative and everything feels so difficult, that's when your body is so stressed, but physically you feel it. You know, it's like that sort of tight chest and the stomach, and, you know, maybe you're not going to the toilet. The amount of leaders I've worked with, senior leaders, who do not go to the toilet properly because they are so stressed. They can't actually go to the toilet once or twice a week. And I'm like, what?
Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's really shocked me.
But it makes sense, right? And I say now that it's insane, but if I look back, I don't know, 7 years, I think I probably would have had a similar experience, because it makes sense, because your body is literally gripping on. And so, of course, your body's not going to flow the way it's meant to be.
Yeah, your digestive, I mean, that's why we say rest and digest with your parasympathetic nervous system, right? Because it's allowing it to do what it's supposed to do. And it's the same with like menstrual cycles for some women. When they're super stressed, they you know, messes up their cycle. The body just can't let go. So I think when we get stuck in that survival space, the body's constantly running on adrenaline and cortisol. Our adrenaline eventually burns our adrenals out. And the adrenals are obviously producing cortisol. And that's when we see things like Addison's disease, right? Where people's adrenals actually stop producing cortisol. And it's life-threatening disease. So yeah, it's interesting. The body will keep the score, it holds the score when it comes to stress. And we're seeing such an increase in issues. Women, autoimmune, 80% of autoimmunes are women. So,
is that true? Wow. 80% of autoimmune is in women.
Cases are women, yeah. Because we are the caregivers. We're always doing everything for everyone else. We've got much more stress hormones going on. I mean, our whole body is dictated to by all these different hormones. When we think of hormones, we think women's hormones, but it's not. There's so many other hormonal functions that are going on in the body.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Talking of hormones, so this, you read that, you wrote that article recently where I liked how you explained it like a boardroom, like a CEO. Can you take us through those key hormones and sort of explain them in real plain language as you did in that article?
Yes, look, I've done a whole series on that, on the C-suite, and I've done like the mood C-suite, the sleep C-suite, because sleep suite, C-suite, it's a bit of a tongue twister, that one. And then I did the stress one as well, because I think it's quite an interesting way to sort of view things on how are we being controlled and operated, what's going on at a board level in our body. And and you've got like cortisol, so the CEO, it's what gets us up in the morning. It's like, okay, I'm in charge, let's do this. Your adrenaline sort of steps in. I think I called that the COO, that's your chief operating officer. So the adrenaline's like, okay, I'm here for business, but don't use me all day. I'm only going to jump in when you need me as the COO. The CEO should be running the show a little bit more. But adrenaline, unfortunately, a lot of us are running on way too much adrenaline all day as well. And really, when we go back, adrenaline's when as we've heard it a million times, the saber-toothed tiger jumps in, the adrenaline, but now it's just relentless. And then we've got sort of DHEA as a hormone, which is more of the regulating, calming hormone. So that was sort of the CFO. So that's kind of the person that's sort of coming in and saying, okay, what does this look like? Let's keep this all in order. And so that's kind of how I frame them. DHEA is a really interesting one because that also is responsible for our hormones, so testosterone and estrogen. And so we'll find as we get older, there's a drop in DHEA. And that means we get a drop in some of those hormones. Everything's interlinked. Absolutely. It's crazy. The more we look at it. The more we look at, and the sleep, when we look at our sleep hormones, we've got things like, we've got cortisol to get us up. We've got melatonin to help us get to sleep. We've got adenosine, which is like that long train, which is like the adenosine has to keep going all day so that we feel tired when we yawn. And then we've got GABA, and GABA is like that chill. That's like the body's relaxing down. We're producing GABA, and a lot of people are GABA deficient. They're not producing enough GABA, and so it's impacting sleep. It helps to regulate. So it's sort of similar to DHEA. It's that regulator. So the GABA comes in as the regulator for our stress hormones as well.
Yeah, and I think, you talk about cortisol and people tend to think it's a negative. It's not about it being negative. It's crucial. It's about the balance. So if somebody is in balance, like where do we want to get to and what would that look like?
Yeah, look, I think it's unusual for people to be in balance, sadly. But cortisol, we want to see a rise in the morning. And as you said, it's not all bad. We need cortisol to get us up in the morning and to get us going. So we want to see it rise and we want to see it gradually sort of taper off during the day. And then, as we're going to bed, the cortisol's reduced down. So that's if someone's regulated. We'd want to see it like that. And adrenaline would just spike. Adrenaline shouldn't really spike that much during the day. Like it really should be in the background, like the COO. It's doing all the operating stuff. It's not really front of mind, but that's not happening either because we know that adrenal fatigue is essentially burnout. Really, it's when the adrenals have been pushed to the limit. So that's kind of what it would look like from a regulated space. But if we're dysregulated, we're going to see the cortisols keep spiking, and we'll keep spiking at night. And so naturally we spike cortisol anyway around 3 a.m. The body sort of goes, okay, time to sort of start getting into that place where we're going to wake up at some point in the next few hours. But most of us are running so high on cortisol that it's too much. It's like two magnets connecting, and like ping, you're awake, and the brain is alert because we're running on too much cortisol. So our nervous system is dysregulated.
Is that part of that 3 a.m. wake up that is really common?
Yeah. The cortisol piece is, it's cortisol and adrenaline. The body's kind of getting ready to switch back on.
Yeah.
And most of us should be able to have that surge of cortisol. Some people will wake up, breathe yourself back to sleep, in and out through the nose. The body will just go back to sleep for a few more hours. But for those people that are high alert and in survival and stuck on cortisol, and I've been there many times, the mind starts racing, you're waking up. And there's also other hormones going on there as well, particularly for women. You might be low progesterone, low estrogen. There's other things that may be impacting that. But essentially the cortisol, if we have alcohol before we go to bed, that reduces our GABA. So then our GABA's keeps us calm. And that's why a lot of people get anxiety with alcohol, because our GABA's reduced. So it's not calming. So there's so many factors, but really our cortisol levels should be lower at night if our nervous system is regulated.
Yeah. And with all of this, there's obviously, like we were talking about, as much as possible, you should be able to feel it in your body and the symptoms. But what about actual testing? Like with your clients, do you recommend any specific tests or measures?
So look, the Dutch test is great for cortisol. So that's a lot of women do that, but they've got a male one now as well that's launched. And so women and men can both do it, but that will look at your spikes of cortisol and how that's happening through the day. Yeah. So that's a good test, the Dutch test. Like the DNA methylation test is really worth doing. It doesn't look at cortisol per se, but what it looks at is dopamine. It looks at your sleep. It looks at how your comp genes, so how you deal with stress, and how your body responds to stress. And then that can kind of feed into your cortisol production. Yeah. Like women tend to produce a lot more cortisol. We tend to be a lot higher in cortisol. There's been so much going off about cortisol in the last few years. There's this cortisol face and all this. But cortisol stores fat, right? It is a fat storer. It's a fat storing hormone. So for super stress, we are going to store fat around the belly. We are, it's just naturally the body's sort of trying to protect itself because it thinks we're under threat all the time. It's like, oh my God, there's an emergency. Protect yourself.
And it also makes it incredibly hard to lose weight. So if anyone's listening and they're kind of doing all the right things, eating and exercise wise, but they just can't budget, that can often be that sort of stress, and that cortisol is making it almost impossible to lose weight.
Oh, absolutely. And if anyone's, I've done it where I've gone to a yoga retreat or done some breath work, and, the next day you wake up and you're like, oh, I feel really less sort of bloated, or less, like I just feel like my body feels better. Like when I've done regular practice around that, particularly breath work, because it actually flushes out cortisol. It activates that vagus nerve. There's so many amazing things for free we can do for vagal activation. And I think that really helps to reduce cortisol.
So before we go into that, like maybe we can explain to people who, if they don't know what the vagus nerve is and the role it plays, and then we could go into some of the things that help.
Yeah, look, the vagus nerve, this is my framing, but I call it the queen of the nervous system. It's kind of like our controller of all things nerve related, and it kind of goes all the way across our chest and up to our neck and down to our gut. It's incredible, really, if you think it's like that's all over. It's almost protecting us. And the vagus nerve sits into that parasympathetic nervous system. So we've got the two bits. We've got our sympathetic as our survival, our fight or flight. Then we've got the parasympathetic, and the vagus nerve is activated when we're in that parasympathetic nervous system place. And a lot of us are stuck in this fight or flight. So our vagus nerve isn't doing what it should do. It's not regulating our nervous system properly. So that's kind of the vagus nerve. So it's like the controller, the queen of our nervous system. And vagal things we can do to sort of tone that vagal nerve is cold showers, walking, grounding our feet, massage, what else have we got? Gargling, singing, humming. There's so many different things we can do to sort of soothe the nervous system and activate that vagus nerve. There's technology we can call pulsetto, where we put it on the pulsetto, and I mean that's because that's vibrational. So we often see kids humming, and the reason why kids are humming is often self-soothing, and they're trying to regulate their nervous system. So that anything that's causing that kind of, I love the humming bee. That's one of my favorite ones.
What's the humming bee?
Put your fingers in your ear and you hum like a bee, and it just the vibration's amazing.
Nice.
So
okay, cool.
I often do that in my keynotes.
Like
I get everyone to do it.
Oh,
no,
really?
I get everyone to do it in my keynotes.
Nice.
I get them to do the humming bee.
I thought it was like what you were doing in the background, before you go on, like
No, I do it. I'm like, come on, everybody.
Nice.
I do that as well. I do the rebounding too.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of simple things, gardening, things like that. Just being in nature, that helps to activate our vagus nerve. And I think it's just about how can we get to a place where we are calming the nervous system and finding those pockets during the day where we do that.
And I think that's really important, because we tend to think gym is at this time and, like those set blocks, whereas what you're talking about is sprinkling it throughout your day. And I also try to be really aware of how my body is feeling. And if I notice that I'm getting tense at all, then like going out into the garden, feet on the ground. I like shaking. Shaking's really good for moving off energy.
It's a great one.
Certain breath work is excellent. So anything that like you can notice that down regulates, and doing that the moment, like it's about catching it as well, right? Before you get taken away into some story or stress.
Totally.
I think that's very important.
Yeah. And for people that really struggle with doing something, acupuncture can be great as well. So they can actually do, when they put the needles in the ear, that helps to really activate that vagus nerve. And they can actually, even chiropractors as well, if your vagus nerve is trapped, they can release that as well. So if you've got so it's very interesting, like the mechanics of the body and what we're holding on to and where we're stuck. And I think that's what, as you said, that somatic piece is so important, right? Where we're sort of using the body to release.
Yeah, definitely. And what about as far as, so we talked about the vagus nerve, but specific things to balance cortisol and adrenaline? Like, are there specific practices that you recommend or things that aggravate them that we should be avoiding?
Look, I think for some people, ice baths and cold plunges can give a real spike in cortisol. So if you're already running high on cortisol, then you jump in a cold bath, ice plunge, particularly for women, it can be counterproductive. Coffee for some people will spike coffee does spike cortisol. But for some people, they can manage that. Other people, it can be a problem. So, things like alcohol will initially people feel calm, but actually it's also spiking cortisol. I think just, the adrenaline piece of like when we're in a car and we're losing our temper, or, with our kids, I think that's the big one is, I mentioned that earlier, is that not going from 0 to 60 by being, buttons being pushed by kids. And I think it's very easy, as I see it with my friends whose kids are still at home and I'm screaming at them sometimes. And I'm like, oh my God, like I forgot what that's like to raise your voice. I haven't done it like that for so long.
I think I did it yesterday.
Yeah.
My kids
I spent
12.
I spent years doing it, years and years. Yeah. Gosh, no shame here. But it's like just things like that. I think that's your body's going into that, like, rah! So sort of the adrenaline piece. But look, I think, breath work, we keep, it's just breath work helps so much with all of these, with the cortisol and adrenaline spikes. Just trying to find some peace and calm when you can.
Yeah.
In your day. 5 minutes, but be a plant. That's one of my hacks that I talk about. Vitamin D, drink water, breathe some fresh air, photosynthesize, do what plants do. And, just carving out those small pockets of time to just go, I'm safe, hand on your chest, hand on your belly, like just, telling yourself I'm okay, I'm safe. Affirmations, there's so many things.
Yeah. And that just sprinkled throughout your day and those early catching. Yeah, I love that. So you talked, just coming back to a couple of things you talked about, you mentioned coffee, and I know, I love coffee. I think a lot of people do, but is there ways to have coffee so it doesn't impact you so much? Like what about timing and so forth? That's important, right?
It is. It's really individualized. And funnily enough, the DNA methylation test actually looks at caffeine metabolism and when, if you're a fast metabolizer or a slow one, and when the best time to drink coffee is, depending on your genetics, which is really interesting. But then you factor in your epigenetics, right? And you go, okay, well, what's your lifestyle like? Are you already a million miles an hour when you wake up? And then you're like coffee and you're going more and more into this adrenaline spike and cortisol. But coffee, I don't drink coffee, but I am not against coffee at all. I believe there's lots of health benefits to good quality coffee. Again, the qualitarian of what you're consuming is really important. Like if you're drinking I'm not going to name names and shame, but just, an instant brand it's crap. And it's going to have a lot of mold and it's not good quality. So I think quality is important. Enjoy it. It should be a ritual having a coffee. Slow down.
Totally.
It should be like on the go. Like, I was listening to a podcast yesterday with an amazing gastroenterologist in Sydney, Dr. Craig Hayfier, who's just amazing, doing some incredible work in the fecal transplant space. Anyway, he was going off on a tangent there. He was talking about his coffee ritual and how he loves just sitting down for 5 minutes and just enjoying his coffee and just and having a ritual. I do it with cacao, and it's really important. Like that's a beautiful ritual. The body's calm, it's just a different experience.
Yeah, I do love my going to the coffee shop, knowing everyone, sitting in the sun.
Yeah.
But
wonderful.
I found something for me in that regard is when I shifted from having coffee after I ate, that was complete game changer. So I do feel like that makes a difference, definitely.
It really does, particularly for women. I think it can make a huge difference. So it's just looking at how do I feel when I have that coffee. And as you said, you just tuned in and gone, I feel so much better when I put some food. I've had, even if it's half a banana or some chia pudding or something to line the gut a little bit before you hit it with coffee. And always hydrate before you caffeinate. Always water before coffee and water after coffee. It's so dehydrating as well. And it also kills a lot of our magnesium coffee. So that is one downside. So if you are drinking a lot of coffee, you probably want to supplement with magnesium as well.
Yeah. Awesome. What about DHEA? How do we support that?
Well, look, that's an interesting one. I think it's worth getting. Yeah, look, there's supplements for it. So some people are taking DHEA supplements. It's not particularly. I think it might even be black market. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I don't know if it's black market, but I think it's quite hard to get hold of it as a supplement. I think there's certain doctors that can, a bit like the peptide space. It's a bit sort of grey. But yeah, so you can supplement with it. And the DHEA helps you to stabilize estrogen and testosterone. So it's really great for that, particularly women. We get a real drop in testosterone as well, but it's not looked at as much as the estrogen and progesterone. So you can supplement with that. I think there's some different foods as well that support DHEA, but I'm not 100% sure, but I can tell you right now, and just let you know, because I think, so I guess it's just, healthy fats, definitely. So your avocado, extra virgin olive oil, wild salmon, nuts and seeds, they all help to support it. So your body needs fat to produce it because it's a steroid hormone, DHEA. So fats are good. Protein rich, eggs, grass-fed meats, chicken. This is why most people should start the day with really good quality eggs. So pasture-raised eggs, avocado, olive oil on your sourdough or your gluten-free bread, lashings of olive oil, broccoli sprouts, wild salmon, or, that's a really nourishing start to your day. And that's really going to help to support that DHEA production as well.
Yeah. Is that kind of your typical breakfast?
That's mine. Yeah. I just posted it on Instagram yesterday. And I also added bit of Meredith goat's cheese in it as well. But, you know, really important that we're having a very nourishing, filling, savory start to the day. You know, a lot of people are on berries and granola and stuff, which is great, but it's a bit of a spike for our blood sugar. So definitely want to have more savory. Most of us are choline deficient. We get that from our eggs. So, you know, and I think those good fats feed the brain. And so that's just an important way to nourish the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. And yeah, choline is so important for the brain. Absolutely. Well, first of all, before I go to that question, you work with a lot of high performers, and do you notice anything where they're trying to reduce their stress, but they're actually, like, it's counterintuitive? They're actually achieving the opposite?
Yeah, look, I think it can be stressful trying to reduce stress, right? Like, what's creating more stress? Stress on top of stress, you know. And I think that's why, and with a lot of my clients, I really try to not restrict too much, because I think restriction, when we start restricting aspects of our life, that's when people start going, doesn't feel good. 100%. So leaning into more of what's making you feel good, and I think that whole good dopamine piece. Like, a lot of us are dopamine deficient. We're chasing dopamine. And a lot of people will do that with alcohol, food, gambling, drugs, whatever it might be, to fill those sort of gaps. Whereas there's so many positive sort of good dopamine things that we can do, you know, being in nature, walking, exercising, you know, good chocolate, whatever it might be, that kind of, you know, that fills. Loco Love, that's one of my dopamine.
All the things. Good hugs,
go-tos,
etc.
Yeah, all those things. So I think for a lot of high performers, sometimes well-being can be really overwhelming, and it's like another thing on their to-do list, and it's that wellness overwhelm, and you can go into what I call health paralysis, where you don't actually know what to do because there's so many things you could do, and it becomes really stressful. So simplifying, foundational, the basics. What does your day look like? Where have we got room to sprinkle stuff? It doesn't have to be anything too big. Let's just keep things really simple, so that we reduce down that stress, that mental load of well-being.
Love that. And I think biohacking in itself can at times tend to be the opposite, you know, like try this, do this many supplements. And absolutely. So in line with what you said, let's talk through what a typical day could be for someone who's already really busy, just sprinkling in some things to support everything that we've discussed.
Yeah, beautiful. And just, you know, and like, I look at my day today, and I've done, you know, sauna, cold shower, red light. I don't do that every day, but, you know, I've got access to that as well. So that's, you know, that's something I'm grateful to have. But for most people, you know, I think waking up in the morning and finding 10 minutes to just connect with yourself, connect with your breath, find some peace, find some space, you know, create some positive affirmations. It absolutely shifts how you turn up and how you show up for the day. So I think that's just an absolute, even if you've got small kids, you know, try and wake up 10 minutes earlier than they do, or try and find 10 minutes, tag team it with your partner. I'm just going to go downstairs or go to a different room, or you take the kids downstairs, just give me 10 minutes and then we'll swap, whatever that might be. So trying to find some time, carve some time to connect with self, and how am I feeling today? And what do I need today? You know, before we rush into the day, it's like, how, you know, what does my body need? Do I need to get into nature if I can today? Do I need to, you know, am I dehydrated? Do I need to hydrate more? Do I need to, you know, whatever it might be. So finding that time, definitely cold showers. You've got to try it. It's, you know, it's 250% increase in dopamine. Like, it's you can do anything once you've had a cold shower. Your resilience levels are high, you know, and you'll feel good. So I think that's something that everyone can do in the morning. You know, if you are going to have a coffee, just take that time to slow down a little bit, so you're not rushing as much. I think just giving yourself more time so that you're not under the pump all the time and rushing. Like, I used to turn up to yoga so stressed. I was always running late and rushing. And I was like, what is the point of this? It's, you know, what am I doing? So like, just leave 10 minutes earlier. Stop putting yourself under stress. So I think looking at what we can do to reduce down those micro stress doses. So the MSDs, and those are like, our macro stress doses, we don't have much control over. Those are the big things that happen in life. But those micro stress doses, like even our alarm when we wake up in the morning, making sure it's peaceful. I have birds that wake me up on my alarm. I don't have what my teenager has, which is this horrible alarm, which sends your body immediately into fight or flight. You're like, you wake up and your heart, adrenaline, cortisol, I'm under threat, right? That's from the moment you wake up. So just, thinking about how can I create time so you're not missing transport or stuck in traffic or whatever it might be. So creating that space. So those are some simple sort of morning things. And then I think just making sure that you're moving your body every day. We have to move.
Yeah.
30 minutes of walking counteracts all the sitting that we do. So just trying to get those steps in.
Yeah.
Trying to get some fresh air, a bit of vitamin D, 5-10 minutes, be a plant. Just simple things. Be a plant, I know. Yeah, photosynthesize. But just some simple things that we can do, depending on where we're at. If are we in the office, we're working from home. Give ourselves permission. We don't have to be a robot. We don't have to be 24/7 on our computer, back-to-back on Zoom. When we do that, our brain goes into fight or flight. We produce adrenaline. But when we're back-to-back in Zooms, so create space, create breaks in between meetings, because that allows the brain to calm down and the amygdala to go, okay, I'm not quite as reactive and stressed. So those simple things, and just having a nighttime ritual, 6 minutes of reading reduces stress by 68%.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. Such a good one. So 10 minutes, read a book, reduce your stress levels, get out of your head. Not a self-help.
Like I do all the time.
I mean, self-help, look, come on. If that's your thing, that's your thing. Whatever works, it's the thing. We've got to tune into ourselves and trust our own intuition. Yeah. We've got so used to trusting all these other experts who are highly credentialed and amazing, but they don't know who we are. They don't know our body. They don't know our unique bio-individuality. So I think we've got to work what resonates with us, and what we have capacity for. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I really love, like I said to you at the start, your approach about just how simple you make things. To me, that sounds all very simple, but just in case someone who's listening is like, that still is a lot of things. What would be the one thing that you're like, okay, tomorrow, just try this one thing and start there? What would that be?
If you can, just find 10 minutes to meditate, or 5 minutes to start your day, just breathing at peace, meditating. Insight Timer have loads of free meditations on there. I love Chelsea Possinger's amazing. She's got heaps on there. They've got good affirmations, positive energy. So just carve out 5 to 10 minutes for yourself in a day to just connect in with self.
Excellent. I love it. So bit of a invitation for everyone listening to try that out. And then I know that Camilla and I would both love to hear how you're going. I'll link both of our social media handles in the chat. And if you could share with us, tell us, or ask any questions, we'd love to hear. I suppose I'd love to now hear people, how can they find you? I've got your book here, which everybody should read. This is so, as you can hear, listening to Camilla, like she's so good at making things that can be super complex, just really, really simple and fit into your busy life, which is the audience that I'm speaking to. So definitely look up Biohack Me. I think you can get it everywhere, right?
You can, it's Amazon, Booktopia, bookshops, airports. And thank you. That's good feedback, because I did write the book to really, help people think it's possible, rather than, feeling too overwhelmed by looking at what we can do to extend our health span and our energy and, look after ourselves better. So yes, there's my book. I host retreats. I've got one in Bali coming up, but I don't know when this podcast is going live. It will probably be post my retreat.
A couple of weeks. So people
or it might be just before. I've got one in May. And then I do one-on-one coaching.
Bali.
Yeah, who's coming? Come on. And my one-on-one coaching. So that's, and I do keynote speaking. So yeah, I come and present this content, and it's, so much of it's new. I've got some great content on sleep and the nervous system. And, I've created this whole C-suite of sleep. And I think people really resonate. It's different. And it's how do we apply it, and getting people to really switch on to that self-care piece is really important. So yeah, my keynotes, my coaching, there's my book, and yeah, follow me on Instagram. I'm always sharing and talking about my work and what I do. And yeah, that's
great.
me.
We'll put all the links in the show note. Thank you so much. it was so great to speak to you as always.
Pleasure. It was great. Yeah, I love this conversation. I think we could go on for hours, but maybe we'll do a part 2 later in the year.
Definitely a part 2. I think there's loads that we could speak about. If people listening have specific things that they'd love us to talk about, let us know. We'll schedule another one. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Now it's your turn. Take what you've learned today and put it into action. Try the habit, run the experiment, and actually track how you go. I'll be doing it right alongside you and sharing on socials, so come find me there. Links are in the show notes. Tell me what's working, what isn't, and what questions are coming up. I genuinely want to know. And if today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so we can keep optimizing our health together, one simple step at a time. Take care, and I'll see you next week.